Welcome into the latest edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. My name's Barrett Sallee. I appreciate you checking out the show. Look, we're just over 30 episodes into the new edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. That's right. We brought it back on February 1st. Cranking right along. Big news about the show that we will talk about in the coming days or so. Be prepared for that. Got a busy show today. Lots going on in the world of college football. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, this is live, so leave them in a chat. Live as of 10:34 a.m. Eastern time. So I can see your comments. If you have any, make sure you drop them in YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching. I'll try to answer that as best as possible. We'll talk about Clemson's lawsuit against the ACC. That's a big one. We've got a couple of boomerang transfers, although one is a little bit more recent than the other. So we'll talk about one boomerang transfer and maybe another one coming up in a little bit. So, like I say, every single show, we're here for you. College football is the most undercovered sport in all of America. No, we don't want to talk about who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Nobody cares about that. Not many people care about the NBA in general in comparison to college football. So we're here for you. So go listen, go watch all the other podcasts out there. I encourage you to get as many perspectives as possible because we all have different perspectives. And that's what's great about this country. That's what's great about this sport. We can all yell at each other and we can still be friends because I'm friends with you guys. I like you guys. So spread the word about College Football Smothered and Covered. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a 1-star review. Don't really care. Just want to know what you like and what you dislike about the show. One thing I like is breaking tea. How about the Valley? It's a great Clemson shirt you can get. Death Valley, of course, one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. Clemson is on the mind of basically everybody out there in the college football world. If you want to show your support for Clemson University, go to breakingtea.com/smothered and covered. You can see it along the ticker on the bottom, breakingtea.com/smothered and covered. You can get this shirt. You can get any shirt. They've got shirts for basically every single college football team, college basketball team. It is March Madness, so you can get your gear there as well. And just over a week away, just under a week away, I should say. Well, what's today? Today's Wednesday, just over a week away from the Braves kicking off their campaign to win the World Series. We saw the Dodgers game this morning. I'm sick of the Dodgers already. Sick of them. But it'll be fun to beat them in the NLCS. So breakingtea.com/Barrett if you want to get some Braves stuff as well. All right. The next shoe to drop in what I think is the demise of the ACC is Clemson's lawsuit against the conference. Now, this is a little different than Florida State's, but I think the goal is the same, and that's to exit the conference as seamlessly as possible. Now, that's an easy take. I get that. Now, with Clemson, I do think there's a little bit more nuance in the sense they are aiming at different parts of this. So when I look at this lawsuit, I don't necessarily think, Clemson's on its way out. I think Clemson's trying to get the upper hand. It's like George Costanza in Seinfeld. Who's got hand? Well, Clemson's trying to get the upper hand. Why? Maybe it does want to leave. I think that probably is plan A. But if that doesn't work out, plan B is to try to squeeze as much power out of the ACC as possible. I think that's the crux of all this. The ACC has too much power. And if you talk to people around college athletics, I think the biggest thing is that they secured this media rights deal for way longer than I think some of these schools anticipated the market would move. That is Clemson's fault. That is Florida State's fault. But contracts are made to be broken. The deal with this is that you have to have like top secret security clearance and go into a SCIF to watch, or to see, I should say, the ACC grant of rights deal. Like literally it is in like a secured SCIF. Like that's how difficult it is for the ACC or for teams to go see the media rights deal. So I don't necessarily think it's the end of Clemson's era in the ACC. But what is the case, and we've talked about this multiple times on this show. Remember a couple years back, there was the Magnificent Seven. which is a stupid name, but there was the Magnificent Seven. There were the ACC schools that wanted to push for higher revenue share and all this other stuff. It was Florida State, it was Clemson, it was North Carolina. I think Miami was in there, maybe NC State or whatever. It doesn't matter who was in the Magnificent Seven. To me, you're starting to get it at all sides from the ACC, or you're starting to get it at multiple sides. And it wouldn't surprise me if other schools in the ACC joined a lawsuit or filed a lawsuit to continue to put that pressure, not necessarily to exit, because it's going to be hard for Florida State and Clemson to latch on somewhere. Sure, I think the natural reaction is to go to the SEC, and maybe that still is the case. But if you also want to make yourself financially viable, maybe you do it in the ACC. Well, how do you do it? You hit the ACC from every possible direction. But there are two parts to this, right? This is the introduction to the lawsuit. And I think this is so surprising to me that the ACC, even if Clemson leaves, the ACC would still own the rights to broadcast Clemson games. And then there's the exorbitant fee of $140 million that in this case, you look at what the ACC owes, or I should say what Clemson would owe the ACC if it were to leave, $140 million. That's insane for $140 million. Now, here's the problem. I don't necessarily think it's just the number, although, yeah, the number is remarkable. But I also think it's the fact that it doesn't seem like it would be able to be, it wouldn't be negotiable. Or even if it was negotiable, the ACC would dig its heels in and try to minimize that as much as possible. And here's the ACC statement from Jim Ryan, the chairman of the board of directors, and the ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips. The ACC remains confident that its agreements with all of the members will be affirmed by the courts. Clemson, along with all other ACC members, voluntarily signed and re-signed in 2013 and 2016 the grant of rights, which is binding through 2036. In addition, Clemson agreed to the process and procedures for withdrawal. The conference's legal counsel will vigorously enforce, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. To me, Clemson or the ACC is digging its heels in. And again, it goes back to what I said before. The ACC knows what's coming. There's no doubt the ACC knows what's coming. And that is another lawsuit from North Carolina, from NC State, from Virginia. Virginia's already made it abundantly clear that it wants all the smoke, as it did when it joined Tennessee's lawsuit, the NIL lawsuit. So Virginia wants the smoke. And so I would imagine that Virginia's the next one to jump in here. Miami certainly would be a part of this as well. I'm interested to see how the newbies handle this, because remember, Florida State was way critical of Cal, Stanford, and SMU, saying they don't bring value. Okay, but are they going to be part of the Magnificent Seven and make it the Magnificent Nine or whatever it is? Maybe they do. Maybe the ACC looks at those three and thinks, wow, they just got here, but they could turn against us really, really quick. I'm just saying it might be a possibility. We all know that SMU, money is not an option. So they will jump on board with whatever topic. Wherever the wind blows, it wouldn't surprise me at all if SMU jumps in that direction. Let's go to comments. Greedy Grandpa, what are your thoughts on Alabama's natty chances for the season? What are the keys for a run? I think Alabama can make the playoff. I don't think right now it's a team that can win the playoff. And the reason I say this is I think Alabama is the fourth best team in the SEC right now. I think when you look at Alabama right this very second, Georgia's better, Texas is better, and Ole Miss is better. But that's right this very second. What happens after the 15 practices wrap up? What happens after A-Day? What happens after the spring portal window closes on April 30th? That will tell the tale of this Alabama team. Because as it's constructed right now, no, it's not capable of winning a national championship. And I would say, no, it's not capable of making the playoff. But I do think that it will be one of the most active teams in the spring portal window. I do think there's still an attraction. We'll talk about one of the offensive linemen that suddenly now is reattracted to Alabama in a little bit. But I think right now you have to look forward to that. And so it's impossible to say, and I don't want to dodge your question, Greedy Grandpa. It's impossible to say really. So I think the chances of them actually winning the championship as constructed right now are that will change. It's likely that will change once they wrap up the spring portal window on April 30th. Another one, do you think Ohio State will be Texas 2.0? Can you really buy a national championship? Yes, you can buy a national championship. There's no doubt about that. You 100% can buy a national championship. And no, I don't think Texas is Ohio State. At least in this sense, I think what the question sort of suggests is that Ohio State chokes in the big moments. I think Texas has already proven that it can't choke and won't choke in the big moments. Against Alabama in week 2, I don't think people remember. Alabama was leading in the fourth quarter. And Texas came back, and Steve Sarkisian knows how to win. He's got talent all over the place. He's getting transfers from all over. So he's doing that, but he's doing it at a level that really nobody else has mastered yet. He's got the secret sauce, and he's proven he can win in the trenches, which is very important for Texas now that it's in the SEC. So, no, I don't think Texas is the SEC's version of Ohio State. Well, because Texas can win a national championship. Could Ohio State win a national championship? I'd like to see it before I believe it. But I think Texas is much more likely to get there and win it before Ohio State right now, especially considering what the Big Ten is adding with Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. Don't really care about the California schools, more interested in Washington and Oregon. So right now, like I said before, Texas is my number 2 team in the SEC. I think they'll be the number 5 seed in the college football playoff as it's currently constructed because the 4 top conference champions get the 4 top seeds. But is that team capable of winning a national championship? Absolutely. Was it capable of winning a national championship last year? Absolutely. You give Texas 61 minutes instead of 60 minutes, I'd say they probably beat Washington in that Sugar Bowl national semifinal. So it'll be interesting, though, because it's already a hot topic, right? Texas is already that team that everybody's got a hot take on before they even see what they look like in fall camp. My only request is don't stick to that, because this isn't 10 years ago where you have a pretty good idea of what you have after spring practice. So with Texas, and really this goes for every school out there, but specifically with Texas, don't marry yourself to one take or the other until about late August, because that will tell the tale. All right. We have one boomerang transfer and we have a sort of boomerang transfer. We're going to start with the latter. Miami losing top rusher Henry Parrish to the transfer portal. The leading rusher for the last couple of years. He ran for 625 last year, 604 in 2023. And I think when you talk about Parrish, you have to think about a guy who, after coming from Ole Miss, took the reins, took control of an offense that was below average. And through no fault of Cristobal's own at times, littered by injuries, but he was the workhorse. It was hard for that offense to get going at all. And still, he was somewhat successful. So this is a big loss for Miami. I think when you lose a guy who you've relied on time and time again, you don't really want to deal with that, especially considering A, it's a big year for Cristobal, and B, you only have 3 healthy scholarship running backs left on the roster this spring. Chris Johnson is the most experienced of those. He has just over 70 yards for his career. And I think that's the biggest thing, because they will get Fletcher back this summer. And Mark Fletcher was 1B to 1A for Miami last year. pick which one, who was 1B, who was 1A between Fletcher and Parrish. But you're installing a much different offense with Cam Ward. Miami is not the kind of team that in this year, in such a big year for Cristobal, has the luxury of going into week one still trying to figure it out. A, because they got a rivalry game against the Gators in week one, but more importantly, B, because things can fall apart, and we've seen it fall apart with Miami pretty consistently. Miami should be going into fall camp fine-tuning its identity. Instead, without Parrish, they're going to go into fall camp trying to figure out their identity. And that's a problem. That's a problem for any school, much less one that is in a very, very critical year about where it is now and where it's going in the future. Now, Cristobal has said that he will be very active in the transfer portal in the spring. And he even said that, you know what, they need to add somebody else. That's true, especially considering the potential and likely number one back in Fletcher still coming off a foot injury. You don't really know what his 100% is anymore. So as of now, we don't know who that running back is or who are those two running backs that he's getting in the transfer portal. I'm sure that he knows, because tampering is tampering, and we all know that we love tampering, but we haven't seen it yet. Where will Parrish go? Well, Matt Zenitz of 24/7 thinks he's going to be a long-term boomerang back to Ole Miss. Boomerang! There we go. There's our boomerang graphic. If you have not seen this Eddie Murphy classic with Halle Berry and Robin Givens, you have to go watch it. It's fantastic. So it's not a full boomerang yet, but it sounds like Henry Parrish will be going with Lincoln. Think about that. You put him with Ulysses Bentley, Lovie Diggs, Jackson Dart as a runner. Woo, buddy. That might be enough for me to elevate Ole Miss above Texas in my SEC spring power rankings, and certainly makes them better than Alabama. Speaking of the Crimson Tide, Kaydn Proctor, another boomerang transfer, but this one is a little bit more recent. Proctor going from Iowa, where he spent about 10 minutes, back to the Crimson Tide. And I think we all laugh at that, right? Like, I hate X. It's not real life. It's just not real life. But it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny. I think right now, the biggest part of what this means is that if you didn't trust Kalen DeBoer before, you have to trust him now, because he is getting down and dirty in all of the recruiting battles. He understands what's up. He understands exactly what needs to be done to make a statement to the rest of the SEC that he's not Brian Harsin, that he's not some outsider that doesn't understand what it takes to win in this league. I'm not saying he's going to win like Urban Meyer, but he is Urban Meyer in the sense that he's going to be uber aggressive. He's going to set the tone. He's not going to sit there and say, you know what, my way was the right way, I'm not doing it anymore. He's adjusted. So that's the biggest thing. Now, granted, I will not buy Alabama's offensive line being a force until we see Alabama's offensive line as a force. For the last 2+ years, it's been a disaster. They've had individual guys. They've had individual talent that just knocks everybody's socks off in the NFL draft circuit that have been successful in the NFL. But I'm done believing that unit will come together until I see it. The change to Kalen DeBoer suggests that it might happen, because that Washington offensive line won the Joe Moore Award last year. And to me, there will be a lot to be excited about if Kaydn Proctor does in fact enroll, and what happens moving forward. All right, last thing before we hang up the headsets here. My old colleague, Tom Fernelli, I love Tom. Tom's one of the best guys in all of college football. This was a great story that he posted on CBSSports.com. Virginia Tech quarterback Kyron Drones improving in key areas will have Hokies emerging as an ACC threat in 2024. And I know what you're thinking. Kyron Drones, the hell's he's talking about? Well, he came in midseason, became the starter, and all he did was finish second in the conference in passer rating in conference games. 152.87. 152.89 was Jordan Travis. The dude almost led the conference in passer rating in conference games. Now, and that's pretty much all he did. That's pretty much all he played, conference games. You're telling me that people don't know about this kid? Get to know Kyron Drones. Get to know the dude, because he could be a breakout star. He absolutely can lead Virginia Tech into ACC contention in a bad ACC, because we're all searching for dark horses, right? I said SMU could be a dark horse. A lot of people think Miami could be a dark horse. Whatever. Pick your team. Virginia Tech might be the team nobody's talking about, and Kyron Drones is the reason why. So kudos to Tom Fornelli, a guy I absolutely love. Speaking of, you love college football, listen to all the podcasts out there. Tom's on Cover 3 on CBS. You should definitely listen to him. That'll do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Please share it with your friends. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Rumble, all that stuff. You know how to, if you're watching this or if you're listening to this, you know exactly how to do the subscription thing. So I'm not going to sit here and go over it with you, but leave a review. Like I said, we like positive feedback. We like negative feedback, just like feedback in general. So please do that. Big news coming on the status of the show. Might see that Wednesday, might see that Thursday, might see that Friday, might see it next week, but it is coming. So prepare yourself for that. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.